Hey, let's explore 9 different North American species that you can use as bonsai. Most bonsai people always tend to choose Asian, Japanese, or Chinese trees to make bonsai, but there's such a plethora of excellent North American species that you can use to make bonsai, and you should. So today I'm going to show you some of those species that I'm working on, and I hope to inspire you to use more of them in your bonsai collection. At number 1, we have the Tamarack, or American Larch, Larix laricina. This tree is beautiful at any time of year. At this time of year, in the next few weeks, all the needles will turn bright yellow, golden yellow, fabulous. In winter, it's deciduous, it drops all its needles. In the spring, it's covered with tender green new growth, and it looks like this in summer. So they're just beautiful any time of year. An easy tree to grow. They grow well in moist soils or dry soils. The only difficulty is if you live south of New York City, then you can't grow them. I really love this particular specimen because it's so compact. You see the powerful base here, the nabari, the beautiful deadwood all along the trunk, and the way the foliage frames this beautiful old scaly bark tree. Just a lovely medium-sized bonsai that's all there. My number 2 favorite is the jack pine, Pinus banksiana, a wonderful tree. The trunks grow in very contorted shapes. In fact, they're the inspiration for the famous Canadian painters of the Group of 7. The foliage is very short, compact. The branches are very contorted too. I acquired this tree from a bonsai person, and this tree has not been repotted for 30 years, so I have to get onto it. And also this autumn I will be doing a very serious wiring on this tree. So stay tuned for this too. This tree does grow in very poor soils, but you must be very careful. Repot it really at the very beginning of its growing season and use a very coarse, fast draining soil. And very, very intense, the brightest sunlight it can get. It's in no particular order. I like them all. At number 3 is Pinus strobus, Eastern White Pine. It's known as the tallest pine in eastern North America. They were used for ships' masts because the trunks grew very tall and straight. As you can see, this one here has been grown in a literati style. They're prized for the very soft foliage. It's a 5-needle pine here. They're a very graceful tree. So you should have one in your collection. Now they are a bit difficult because in the spring, if you do candle pinching, you can't cut off the candles completely. You just have to shorten them. And they don't send out many new candles. So you have to be very, very frequent in your pruning. But they do make lovely bonsai, so I recommend it. Next, number 4 is the Eastern White Cedar, Thuja occidentalis. This is the longest living tree in eastern North America. Here in Quebec, we have many specimens growing in the wild that are older than 1,500 years old. They make wonderful bonsai because of all the dead wood. They have beautiful scale-like bright green foliage in the spring, and they're very easy to train. They have a very fibrous root system. They're easy to collect and easy to repot. They adapt very well to almost any pH of soil. They like a slightly moist but well-draining soil. They're an ideal first bonsai for many North American bonsai lovers. In the spring, it was slightly more leaning, and I decided to bring it upright. Originally, when it was found cascading over a waterfall about almost 40 years ago now. So now it's a slanting style bonsai. It's very beautiful, the movement of it. This tree has been displayed in Bill Valavanis' symposiums. It was also displayed in a US national exhibition, and just 2 weeks ago was displayed at the local bonsai exhibition in Montreal. At number 5, we have the American elm, Ulmus americana. This tree is famous for its vase-shaped silhouette, and it was used extensively as street trees in North America until the Dutch elm disease came along and devastated almost every American elm in North America. Now they do make great bonsai though, because they grow quickly, they ramify well. The leaves are a bit large, but if they're defoliated during the summer, they make just a great bonsai. This particular tree was found as a young seedling growing in a crack in the sidewalk. It was almost toothpick diameter trunk when I pulled it out of the crack. Although the shape looks very natural, it is the shape of an American elm, all these branches were wired into shape over the years. But I didn't want to give it the classic Zelkova look. I wanted it to really look like an American elm that you would see in some farmer's field in the distance. So you can see this lower branch here also. At number 6 on our list, we have the Carolina hornbeam, Pinus carolinianum. And it's a great tree, prized because of the very hard wood. It looks like muscles and tendons, very smooth and silvery, and you see the sinews in the trunk. It's a fast grower, very easy to train as a bonsai, relatively small leaves. In fact, this is a dwarfer cultivar called Palisades, and they are great bonsai material. Because of that pale gray trunk, they grow very well in any type of bonsai soil. And as I said, they're easy to train just by cutting back, and they just make a delightful summer bonsai. They flower in the spring and they send out the catkins at the end of the spring. They look beautiful during the summer. This tree was an old nursery find. We found it about 2 years ago, and I transformed it into a bonsai. As you can see, I cut off the trunk and kept only one part of the trunk to create a new bonsai. So you might find it on one of my former YouTube videos and follow the transformation of this tree. It's growing very well. The trunk where it was cut off is big scar, but it's healing over very quickly. So don't hesitate to go out and collect or buy one of these wonderful Carolina hornbeams to add to your collection. Here at number 7 is the Winterberry, or deciduous holly, Ilex verticillata. This is a female, I believe it's red sprite. They're famous for having red fruit through the fall and into early winter. That's why they call it Winterberry. They're a wonderful tree to grow as bonsai. They like a slightly moist, sandy type soil, but you can't let it dry out. It has to be slightly acid also. They take very well to pruning. The wood is very, very hard, so you can't bend thick branches, but you can get an old specimen and cut it back, and then they'll send out new shoots along the trunk. So it's a wonderful bonsai specimen because of that sinuous, smooth gray bark contrasted with the bright red berries, especially in the winter when it has no leaves. They fall and the tree is covered in orangey red berries. I purchased this tree from a nursery in 1997 and grew it in the ground for several years. It was multi-trunked, and finally I only left 2. You can see where some of the big trunks were cut off here and over here, and gradually transformed it into a more bonsai-like shape. It's a very easy tree to grow, and again, I think for its fall and winter color, you should have one in your collection. Highly prized. Here at number 8, we have an American bittersweet, Celastris scandens. It's actually a vine. It grows up the trunks of trees, can actually choke them to death. But because of that, you can find wonderful old gnarly trunks with great movement. At this time of year also, they're covered with orange berries that split open to a very colorful interior. By the way, I transformed this tree on a YouTube video about 3 years ago. An interesting fact is when I was doing it, I broke off the trunk right here. But you can see the tree has recovered well, has formed a new apex, and is growing extremely quickly. So again, great autumn bonsai, brings that bright orange color to your collection. You should have one. At number 9, we have the common juniper, Juniperus communis. It's a pan-polar species. You can find it all throughout the world. One of the most common juniper species in the whole world. It has lovely, very, very tiny foliage, and it's very slow growing. It can have a lot of dead wood, which is a feature on common juniper. You can see how lovely it truly is. Great for bonsai material because of that dead wood. They are a little bit difficult though to collect in nature. The roots are very hard to dig up. This particular specimen was found growing in the far north of Quebec on the tundra, and when it was collected, it was grown in a bucket in the black earth from up north. When I found it at a student's house, it hadn't been watered all summer because the soil didn't drain. So I got it out of that terrible black guck and put it in a fast draining bonsai soil in a shallower training pot. Now this is the result several years later. The deadwood does have to be retreated with lime sulfur, but a wonderful little specimen of common juniper that is so interesting to have in one's bonsai collection. Now we have some bonus species. This is a North American apple, a wild apple. It was introduced into North America by European colonists, but it is not native to North America. This apple tree is prized for its big comestible apples. It's covered with beautiful white flowers in the spring. As you can see, it's a very old trunk that was collected in a farmer's field where it was cattle browsed for a long, long time. That's what kept it quite short. You can see the trunk is all hollowed out from the work of borers also, which gives the tree incredible character. And this tree is grown in a semi-cascade style, which is especially beautiful when it's covered with flowers and fruit. So it is another autumn growing species of tree that you should have in your collection. They do make wonderful bonsai. Even though it's not native, you can find them growing in the countryside all around you and dig one up to make a beautiful bonsai. Last on our list, number 11, is another non-native species but has become naturalized throughout North America. It is a weeping willow, or Salix chrysocoma, and it's actually a hybrid between an Asian species, a Chinese species, Salix babylonica, and Salix alba, which originates in Europe. It was the Salix alba that gives its hardiness to survive the cold in winter. This is a tree that loves humid or wet soils. You can find it growing next to ponds. It's a wonderful tree. It's a very, very fast grower, but requires quite a bit of work to make it look like a natural weeping tree. You have to wire all the branches into an arcing shape downwards to give it that true poetic feeling of an old weeping willow bonsai. This tree was just rewired this morning. It's in a beautiful Tom Dimig American potter pot. The flowing blue color gives you the idea of this tree growing next to a pond or a lake of this beautiful blue color. These native species of bonsai show us that you can find beauty in our native trees and shrubs, not just Japanese and Chinese trees. So I think it's imperative on the bonsai grower in North America to use our native species and in fact to prioritize them in your collection, because they are just as beautiful, just as poetic, and eminently more suited to our climate than Japanese and Chinese trees. So go ahead, give it a try, and try to grow our native species in their natural shapes. That's what bonsai is all about. So subscribe and comment. Which one of these species did you like the most? Which one of them would make you go out to a local nursery or go collecting in fields to find one like that? Please let me know. Send me a line. I really want to know, guys. Thank you for now, and stay tuned for the next YouTube.